It seems like we're heading into a post-Egghead arc, and it's already started with a bang. Chapter 1125 of One Piece has arrived as one of the most exciting of the year, even bringing answers to questions we've been asking for decades. But it also raised many new questions. In this video, we'll analyze everything that happened in this super chapter. Don't go anywhere. Right after the intro. Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. And before we dive into the content of this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything. And well, let's get into the video. And before we get started, stay until the end of the video, because at the end, I'll explain how Oda once again proved he's an absolute genius. Starting with this cover story. Well, this guy who disappeared was the one Frankie worked with back in Wano. They worked on a construction project, remember? Maybe we'll get a mini arc of Yamato looking for him. Let's see how this cover story continues. In the first part of the chapter, we get a shocking line from Rob Luchy. He said he killed Stussy. However, in some translations, he says she died in combat. We'll need to wait for the official translation to clarify this, but we have three possible alternatives here. One is that he's telling the truth and he killed Stussy off screen, remembering we haven't seen her since Kaku said goodbye to his former companion. The second possibility for Rob Luchy's line is he thinks he killed her. I say this because Rob Luchy had hit her with a Shigan. At the time, he was aiming for Vegapunk, and then he might not have seen her again. So to him, she's dead, which would mean Kaku lied to cover up Stussy's escape. And the third possibility here is he lied and is also covering up Stussy's escape, either to help her, showing a character shift for Rob Luchy, remembering he already showed some concern for his companions when he asked Marcus Mars not to kill Kaku, or he lied to save his own skin, knowing he would ultimately be held responsible for her escape. So which of these alternatives do you believe the most? Next, we see a conversation between Saturn and the 9 Vice Admirals. Saturn says that, in the end, all of the mission's priorities were accomplished. Recovering York, maintaining Punk records, and also the factory. Now they can create the Mother Flame, which is their main objective. However, Saturn deeply regrets that Vegapunk managed to leave that message for the world. Here, the Vice Admirals mention that even with a Buster Call, they couldn't capture the Straw Hats or Bonnie, and that they could go after them in Elbaf. That's pure craziness, don't you think? These Vice Admirals wouldn't stand a chance of capturing them in Elbaf. They would be completely annihilated, not only because Elbaf is a land of warriors, but also because they would have to face the Straw Hats head-on without them wanting to flee. My guess is that Luffy alone could wipe out the 9 Vice Admirals without anyone's help. So Saturn brings some sense to these Vice Admirals and says it's not necessary. Then, in his thoughts, he mentions how ironic it is that the giant robot did what it did. Then we quickly see a flashback of him with the scientists from 200 years ago. He was responsible for maintaining the Iron Giant back then. But who could have ordered them to get rid of the Iron Giant? Could it have been Imusama himself? Or the other Vice Admirals? This confirms that the Gorosei are indeed centuries old. However, I don't believe Saint Saturn has been alive since the Void Century because he seems unfamiliar with Emeth from that time. That's because Saturn kept the giant, as he told the scientists of that era that studying it would be a great military opportunity, and he took responsibility for it. Now, it makes more sense why York never mentioned this giant to the Gorosei. If this giant was a hidden study of Vegapunk's Stella, she certainly would have spoken about it. But Saturn already knew about it. He just never imagined the giant would move to save the Straw Hats. Back to the conversation between the Gorosei and the Vice Admirals. Doberman does something he should never have done. He questions Saturn. Wait a minute, if you consider Vegapunk's message a major failure, does that mean what he said is true? And that was enough to infuriate Saturn, who used his power to destroy heads, striking the Vice Admiral. But unlike what the spoilers suggested, I believe Vice Admiral Doberman died here because he simply bleeds from the mouth, but his head doesn't actually explode. The most interesting fact in this scene is that the Marines are starting to question things. And now with Saturn's reaction, this is likely to escalate even further. I believe many in the Navy, after hearing Vegapunk's message, will end up rebelling against the world government. Then we see an interesting part where Punk Records begins to rise through the clouds. York tries to stop it in some way, but she can't. We see that the satellites are alive, however they are all fused into one body, with Edson's head, one of Atlas's arms, Shaka's body, and Pythagoras' arm and back. Shaka regrets that they managed to move Punk Records, but not the Labo stratum. We then see several pieces of the satellites scattered around, and we discover that they are heading to Weria, the place where Nami trained during the time skip. They are great friends with Haradas. I believe we'll see cover stories about this in the future. What do you think? I changed the order of the chapter a bit here because I left the most important part for last, starting with the Tenryubito finally starting to experience hardship. We see more of the filth they are, complaining that they don't have a particular type of meat or that one had to skip his afternoon snack. But this scarcity is going to escalate a lot. I believe we'll soon see these guys crying from hunger. People say, Dragon never does anything, but look at his move. Simply brilliant. And soon, it will give us the pleasure of seeing these guys begging and suffering as they made others suffer. Now, in the room of the world's highest authorities, a new face appears. It's him, Garling, dressed up. He's wearing a suit and a magnificent cape, and he arrives speaking as an equal to the other Gorosei, who, of course, are taken aback. Hey, what's this disrespect? Then Garling reveals, I am the new god of science and defense, and now responsible for Vegapunk York. And my friends, many revelations are made here. First, the Gorosei have no opinions of their own, they are mere puppets of Imusama. Second, the Gorosei seems to be a position like many others, perhaps directly connected to the Holy Knights? It raises the question. While we're introduced to the new Gorosei, we see what may be the most painful and cruel death in the series. Saturn is screaming. That's because Imusama won't tolerate him letting Joy Boy escape. You can tell even Saturn didn't know how important Luffy, the new Joy Boy, was to Imusama. That was his great failure. Then, engulfed in black flames and begging for mercy, Saturn turns into Brook. Well, into a skeleton, aging rapidly before dying. And why did I say this death is the most cruel? If Oda based this on Christian tales, black flames are often seen as flames that never extinguish, although Amaterasu follows the same logic. In short, these black flames represent eternal fire or eternal suffering. I believe these elders made a pact with the devil, like in this case, Imusama, and now it's time for Saturn to face the eternal consequences of this pact. For Bonnie and Kuma fans, know that Saturn may have had the cruelest death in the series. Well, if Joy Boy showed his immense power a few chapters ago, now it was Imusama's turn to prove they are on a completely different level. And to wrap up this review, at the end of the chapter, Koala summarizes what Vegapunk said, and the revolutionaries come to some conclusions. One of them addresses one of the greatest mysteries in One Piece, why the construction of bridges like Tequila Wolf, and Dragon reaches a chilling conclusion. Not everyone will receive Vegapunk's message and live in peace. A war for the best lands could erupt at any moment, and Oda is simply an absolute genius. One of the first major arcs in One Piece was Alabasta, where a civil war was about to explode over a natural resource, rain. That was the first major arc of the series, and the final major conflict of the series could also be a civil war, now to escape from water. It's as if the first major conflict in One Piece was a hint for the last major conflict of the series. Oda is a genius. Well, that's it, folks. This was my review of Chapter 125. I had a big theory involving Garling and the planets, but I'll leave that for another video. What's your opinion about Chapter 1125? Leave it in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Until next time, thanks.